Ready to dive into some seriously smart money moves. We're talking Warren Buffett and how he turned $100 million into $1 billion, a time when disco was king and bell-bottoms ruled the fashion scene.
While those trends faded Buffett's investment strategy during those years, well, they're as relevant as ever.
And we're using a fantastic roadmap for this deep dive. Glenn Arnold's book, The Deals of Warren Buffett, Volume 2, it breaks down 10 of his biggest moves during that period,
Offering a peek behind the curtain at how he thinks and what made him so successful.
But before we jump into those deals, let's talk about Glenn Arnold himself.
Right, why should we trust this guy's take on the Oracle of Omaha?
Exactly.
Glenn Arnold's not just some random writer. He's got serious street cred. He's a finance professor who actually became a full-time investor.
Oh, so he's been in the trenches, so to speak.
Exactly. He spent decades studying the greats like Buffett and experiencing the market firsthand. So his book series on Buffett's deals, it's not just surface-level stuff.
So we're in good hands. All right, let's set the stage. How well did Berkshire Hathaway actually do during this time?
Let's just say they crushed it. They outperformed the S&P 500 by a mile. The S&P 500 doubled, which is pretty good, right?
Not bad at all.
But get this Berkshire stock value multiplied by 29 times.
29 times. That's insane. Okay, let's get into the deals. Deal number 1 takes us to 1976 and a company called Geico. Now, what's interesting is that Buffett bought in when they were in trouble.
Yeah, they were struggling big time. It wasn't exactly a glamorous investment.
So what did Buffett see that everyone else missed?
He saw past the mess and recognized what he called Geico's economic franchise.
Their economic franchise. What does that even mean?
He basically saw that their low-cost business model and their loyal customer base were still rock solid.
Ah, so the core of the business was strong.
Exactly. He knew that with the right strategy, they could turn things around.
So it was a classic Buffett move, buy a good business at a great price.
You got it. And his investment did more than just pump in money. It actually created a ripple effect.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. Arnold calls it a confidence virtuous circle. Buffett's backing gave everyone a boost, not just investors, but also the policyholders. The people actually buying insurance from Geico.
So it was like a vote of confidence that breathed new life into the company.
Exactly. And Buffett himself actually compared this turnaround to another famous comeback story.
Oh, which one?
American Express after the salad oil scandal.
The one where they got swindled with fake oil? Yeah, I remember that.
Right. And Buffett pointed out that both companies bounced back because they had a fundamental advantage. Their core business model was still strong.
They had a good foundation to build on.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the human element in all of this. Jack Byrne became the CEO of Geico, and he was a game changer.
Okay, what did he do?
He was a master of efficiency. He slashed cost, boosted dividends, and even started buying back shares. All these moves were designed to make the most of shareholder value.
It's about more than just cutting expenses. It's about using capital wisely.
You got it. Speaking of using capital wisely, we got to talk about Lou Simpson.
Geico's chief investment officer, the guy who averaged a 23% return over 25 years.
That's right. Simpson was incredibly thorough. He'd spend weeks, sometimes months, researching a potential investment.
Wow, that's commitment.
It wasn't about following the crowd. It was about independent thinking and digging deep into the numbers.
So it was all about doing your homework and understanding the business inside and out.
Exactly. And after Byrne left, Tony Nicely took over as CEO, and Geico just kept on climbing.
Proving that the turnaround wasn't a fluke, it was a sustainable strategy.
Right, it was about building something solid.
Now, I know Buffett's known for giving his managers a lot of freedom.
The hands-off approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's also smart about incentives. How did he incentivize Geico's leadership team?
He tied their compensation to things that mattered: policy growth and underwriting profitability. Things that drive long-term success in the insurance world.
So it wasn't just about short-term profits. It was about aligning their interests with the company's long-term health.
Exactly. It was about building something sustainable.
So what are the big lessons we can take away from the Geico deal?
First, even struggling companies can be gems if their core business is strong. Second, having the right leadership team is crucial.
Makes sense.
And third, the power of compounding returns over the long term. It's like magic.
It's the eighth wonder of the world. All right, buckle up because our next deal takes us to the world of newspapers. In 1977, Buffett bought the Buffalo Evening News, a local paper that was losing money.
An interesting move for a guy who's all about making money, right?
Exactly. So what was the appeal?
Buffett actually compared owning a dominant newspaper to owning an unregulated toll bridge because of the pricing power.
Wait, what? How does that even work?
Well, a strong newspaper can raise prices without losing too many subscribers. It's a unique advantage.
That's a clever way to look at it. But the Buffalo Evening News wasn't exactly a powerhouse. It was struggling. What did Buffett see in this paper?
He saw the value of local news. He knew that people are always going to care about what's happening in their communities.
So he was betting on the enduring appeal of local journalism.
You got it. He saw an asset that was undervalued and thought he could turn it around.
But it wasn't easy, was it? The book mentions losses, competition union issues.
It was a tough road. But this is where we see Buffett and Munger's hands-off approach in action. They trusted the local management to handle the day-to-day stuff while they focused on the big picture.
They believed in empowering the people on the ground.
Exactly. They prioritized quality journalism, understanding that a good newspaper was vital to the community.
It was about more than just making a buck. It was about serving the community.
Right. And Buffett was serious about bringing in the right people. He actually brought in Stan Lipsey, a veteran newspaperman, to consult for the paper.
So he was willing to seek out expertise even when he was already considered an expert himself.
Exactly. He knew that surrounding yourself with talented people was key. And Munger had a great observation about dealing with challenges.
Oh, what was that?
He said it's crucial to acknowledge and address bad news quickly. Don't try to sweep things under the rug.
Face your problems head on. That's good advice for anyone.
Definitely. And despite the early struggles, the Buffalo Evening News ended up giving Buffett a pretty sweet return.
How sweet are we talking?
At least 15 times his original investment.
Now, that's what I call a comeback story. All right, let's move on to our next deal, and this one takes us to the world of furniture. In 1983, Buffett bought Nebraska Furniture Mart, or NFM. This deal introduces us to Mrs. B, the founder of NFM.
Mrs. B's story is amazing. She was an immigrant from Belarus who built the largest home furnishing store in America.
And Belarus to furniture mogul. That's quite the journey.
It is, and Buffett was totally smitten with her. He once said that if he could pick anyone to run a business, he'd choose Mrs. B over any Ivy League grad or Fortune 500 CEO.
That's high praise coming from Buffett. So what was her secret sauce?
She kept it simple. Sell cheap and tell the truth. That was her motto.
Short and sweet. I like it.
She focused on low margins, high volume, and treating customers right.
It's the classic recipe for retail success.
Exactly. And get this, she even had a run-in with some competitors who tried to shut her down.
Why? What happened?
They accused her of unfair pricing, but Mrs. B fought back. She said she was just passing on the savings to her customers.
So she stood up for what she believed in.
She did. And you know what? The publicity from that lawsuit actually helped her business. It's like they say, any publicity is good publicity.
Sometimes controversy can work in your favor. Okay, so Mrs. B was clearly a force of nature. But what about the business itself? What happened to NFM after Buffett bought it?
Well, there was this crazy incident where a tornado hit their main store.
A tornado? That's terrible.
It was. But it actually led to a key insight. They realized that having one big store was more efficient than multiple locations.
So sometimes disaster can lead to unexpected benefits.
You never know. And after Mrs. B's sons and grandsons took over, NFM continued to thrive.
It's a testament to the power of family businesses with strong values. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about a deal that involved not one, not two, but three major players. Capital Cities, ABC, and eventually Disney.
It's a media mega deal that unfolded over a decade.
This sounds complicated.
It is. But it showcases Buffett's long-term thinking and his ability to partner with exceptional people. For starters, he admired Capital Cities for 15 years before he finally invested.
15 years. That's a long time to wait.
He knew they were good business, but he was patient. He waited for the right opportunity.
Patience is definitely a virtue in investing.
It is. And this deal introduces us to Tom Murphy, the CEO of Capital Cities. He and Buffett had this amazing friendship based on mutual respect and business savvy.
So it wasn't just a business transaction. It was a partnership built on trust.
Exactly. They were like two master chess players working together.
Right.
And here's how this three-part deal went down. First, Berkshire invested in Capital Cities. Then Capital Cities used that money to buy ABC.
Creating a media giant.
Right. And finally, in 1996, Disney bought the whole thing.
It's like a corporate love triangle.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And through it all, Buffett played a crucial role. His investment in Capital Cities gave them the financial muscle to pull off the ABC acquisition.
He was the kingmaker in this whole thing.
Exactly. And he always emphasized the importance of look through earnings.
Look through earnings. What's that all about?
It means looking beyond the reported earnings of a company and focusing on their true earning power. It's about seeing the forest for the trees.
It's about understanding the underlying value of a business, not just the numbers on a spreadsheet.
You got it. And even though Buffett eventually sold Capital Cities ABC, he always saw it as a long-term investment.
He wasn't in it for a quick buck.
Not at all. He was all about partnering with great businesses and leaders for the long haul. He wasn't a fan of what he called revolving door capitalists.
People who buy and sell companies without really caring about their long-term health.
Right. He was the opposite of that.
So what are the key takeaways from this epic three-part deal?
Patience is key. Find the right opportunity and don't rush into anything. Second, trust and strong relationships with management are crucial.
It's about finding the right people to work with.
Exactly. And finally, focus on the long-term value of a business, not just the short-term fluctuations of the stock market.
Don't get caught up in the hype.
Right. Stay focused on what really matters. Speaking of patience, our next deal takes us back to the wild world of the 1980s.
The era of big hair, shoulder pads, and apparently some pretty aggressive business tactics.
You got it. Think corporate raiders and junk bonds. It was a cutthroat time, and that's where the Scott Fetzer deal comes in.
Okay, paint the picture for me. Who was Scott Fetzer, and why were they in the crosshairs?
Scott Fetzer was a conglomerate. A bunch of different businesses all rolled into one, led by a CEO named Ralph Shea.
Sounds kind of like a mini Berkshire Hathaway.
In a way, but they weren't as high profile. And that made them a target for those corporate raiders who were looking to make a quick buck by breaking up companies and selling off the pieces.
So even though Scott Fetzer was doing well, they were vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had a solid track record, good management, decent returns, but Wall Street often undervalued conglomerates.
So they were ripe for the picking.
Right. And some big names were circling, like Ivan Beseski and the Rails brothers. These guys were the sharks of Wall Street.
And Shea, the CEO, he wasn't exactly thrilled about this, was he?
Not at all. He was committed to his company and his employees. He didn't want to see it all ripped apart. Yeah. He even tried to buy out the company himself to keep it out of the Raiders' hands.
A valiant effort, but it didn't work out.
He couldn't get the financing. And that's where Buffett comes in.
The White Knight riding in to save the day?
Pretty much. He saw an opportunity to buy a solid business at a reasonable price and help out a CEO he respected.
So it was a win-win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. Buffett trusted Shea so much that they sealed the deal with a one-page contract.
Wait a minute, a one-page contract for a major acquisition? That's unheard of.
I know, right? It shows how much Buffett valued trust and personal relationships over complicated legalese.
He was betting on the person, not just the paperwork.
Exactly. And it paid off, big time. Scott Fetzer's profits soared after they joined Berkshire.
So Buffett's instincts were right on the money.
They were. And it wasn't just a financial success. World Book Encyclopedia and Kirby Vacuum Cleaners, two of Scott Fetzer's subsidiaries, they thrived under Berkshire's ownership.
Proving that even within a conglomerate individual, businesses can flourish with the right support.
Right. And of course, Buffett, being Buffett, he made sure that management's incentives were aligned with the company's success.
He's all about those long-term gains.
Exactly. He tied compensation to performance, rewarding strong results and penalizing low returns on capital.
No free rides for underperforming managers.
Nope. He wanted everyone rowing in the same direction, working towards shared goals. And he was especially critical of things like fixed-price stock options and those golden parachutes for executives.
He saw those as ways to enrich managers at the expense of shareholders.
Exactly. He believed in fairness and accountability.
So what are the big takeaways from the Scott Fetzer deal?
First, look for those hidden gems companies that might be undervalued but have a solid foundation.
Okay.
Second, make sure management's incentives are aligned with shareholder interests.
Got it.
And third, don't be afraid to diversify your portfolio with a mix of strong businesses.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears to a company that sounds a bit more niche. Fetchheimer Brothers, a uniform manufacturer.
Yeah, you don't hear about too many uniform companies in Buffett's portfolio.
So how did this one land on his radar?
This deal is a testament to the power of persistence. One of Berkshire Hathaway's shareholders, a guy named Robert Heldman, was also the chairman of Fetchheimer Brothers.
So he had a vested interest.
He did, and he believed that his company would be a perfect fit for Berkshire. He kept reaching out to Buffett, trying to get a meeting.
He was like a dog with a bone.
Exactly. And eventually, Buffett agreed to meet with him. Not in some fancy office, but in a remote town in Idaho.
Idaho? That's not exactly Wall Street.
I know, right? But that's Buffett for you. He's not afraid to do things differently.
So what was it about Fetchheimer Brothers that convinced Buffett to invest?
Heldman made a compelling case. He highlighted the company's long history, their strong brand recognition, particularly their Flying Cross brand, which was popular with public service and military folks, and their ability to provide customized uniform solutions.
So they had a niche, but they owned it.
They did. They had a competitive advantage, and Buffett was impressed.
And under Heldman's leadership, they continued to succeed even after becoming part of Berkshire, proving that sometimes the best investments are the ones that fly under the radar. Okay, let's talk about a deal that definitely didn't fly under the radar. Salomon Brothers. This was a big one, and it happened in 1987, a year marked by a major stock market crash.
Yeah, the Salomon Brothers deal was a wild ride. It really tested Buffett's mettle.
So set the stage for me. What was the financial climate like back then?
It was a time of excess and speculation. The markets were overvalued, and there was a lot of risky behavior going on.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It kind of was. And Salomon Brothers was right in the thick of it. They were a leading investment bank known for their aggressive deal-making and their take-no-prisoners attitude.
So not exactly Buffett's typical cup of tea.
Not really. But he had a history with them. John Gutfreund, Salomon's CEO, had actually helped bail out Geico back in the 70s, a move that earned Buffett's respect.
So there was a personal connection.
There was. And when Salomon needed capital in '87, Gutfreund turned to Buffett for help.
It was like calling in a favor from an old friend.
Kind of. But Buffett was cautious. He chose to invest in Salomon's preferred stock, a less risky move than buying common stock.
So he was dipping his toes in the water.
Exactly. But then the market crashed, and things went south for Salomon. They suffered big losses, and internal conflicts started brewing.
It was like the perfect storm.
It was. And Buffett was shocked by some of Salomon's executive compensation practices. They were lowering the bar for their stock options, making it easier for executives to get big bonuses, even though the company was struggling.
That doesn't seem very fair to the shareholders.
It wasn't. And then came the Treasury bond scandal, a major ethical lapse that rocked Salomon to its core.
That's never a good headline.
It wasn't. Gutfreund was forced to resign, and Buffett stepped in as interim chairman to try to clean up the mess.
Talk about a trial by fire.
It was. He laid down the law, making it crystal clear that ethical behavior was non-negotiable. He told Salomon employees that he'd be ruthless with anyone who crossed the line.
He was serious about restoring integrity.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big lessons from the Salomon saga. Integrity matters.
It's the foundation of any successful business.
Right. The Salomon deal also highlights the risks of too much leverage, a culture of greed, and ignoring risk management and corporate governance.
It's a cautionary tale.
It is. But it also shows that even when things go wrong, it's possible to recover if you're willing to face the music and do what's right.
It's about learning from your mistakes and coming back stronger. Okay, let's switch gears to a deal that's a little sweeter. Coca-Cola. In 1988, Buffett made a huge investment in this iconic brand.
This one might seem a bit puzzling at first glance. Buffett, the value investor, buying Coca-Cola when it's considered pretty pricey.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like his usual MO. So what was the thinking behind this one?
Buffett saw something special in Coca-Cola. He recognized the power of their brand, their global reach, and their incredible competitive advantage in the beverage industry. He was also a fan of their leadership. Roberto Goizueta and Don Keough had done a fantastic job revitalizing the company.
So it was a combination of a great brand, strong management, and a belief in their long-term potential.
Exactly. And there's this great story about how Don Keough sent Buffett samples of Cherry Coke, and Buffett ended up loving it.
He became a Cherry Coke convert.
He did, and he even started endorsing it publicly.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that even the most savvy investors can be swayed by a good product.
It's all about those taste tests. But beyond the Cherry Coke, what was it about Coca-Cola's business that really impressed Buffett?
He loved their Lollapalooza effect, as he called it. It's the idea that when multiple positive factors come together, they create this massive surge in value.
Like a chain reaction of good things.
Exactly. And with Coca-Cola, it was their brand, their distribution, their pricing power, their marketing. It all added up to an incredible business.
So he was willing to pay a premium because he believed in the long-term payoff.
Right. And he wasn't afraid to defend his decision. When people criticized the price he paid, he pointed to an article from 1938 that had doubted Coca-Cola's future.
History repeating itself.
Kind of. And of course, Buffett had the last laugh. Coca-Cola's stock price skyrocketed after he bought in.
Another example of his long-term vision paying off. Okay, now for something completely different. Let's talk about Borsheim's, the jewelry store that became part of Berkshire Hathaway in 1989.
This one seems like an outlier, but it actually makes perfect sense when you understand Buffett's approach.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Explain it to me.
Remember Mrs. B, the amazing founder of Nebraska Furniture Marts?
Of course.
Well, Borsheim's had a family connection to her. Ike Friedman, who ran Borsheim's, was the son of Mrs. B's sister, Rebecca Friedman.
So it was a family affair?
It was. And Buffett was a big admirer of Ike's management style and Borsheim's track record.
So he saw the same kind of values and principles at play.
Exactly. Both businesses were all about high volume, low margins, and treating customers like royalty.
The recipe for retail success.
Got it. And get this, when Buffett bought Borsheim's, he basically did zero due diligence.
He just took Ike's word for it.
Pretty much. He trusted Ike and the family behind the business.
That's a lot of trust.
Yeah, it is. But that's how Buffett operates. He's a big believer in judging character and betting on the person as much as the business.
And Borsheim's continued to do well under Berkshire's ownership.
They did. They expanded online, kept up their great customer service, and they even became a fixture at Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting.
The famous Borsheim's cocktail party.
That's the one. It's a testament to how well they fit into the Berkshire family.
It's all about finding those hidden gems that align with your values. Okay, last deal on our list. Gillette Procter & Gamble, Duracell. This one's a three-parter that spans from 1989 to 2005.
Yeah, this one's a biggie. It was Berkshire Hathaway's largest investment up to that point, and it shows Buffett's willingness to adapt and evolve.
So tell me about Gillette. What drew Buffett to them in the first place?
Gillette was more than just razors. They were an American icon, a company built on innovation and market dominance. They invented the razors and blades model, which is brilliant.
Give me the rundown on that model.
You sell the razor at a low price and then make your money on the replacement blades. A classic way to create recurring revenue.
It's a genius strategy that's been replicated in so many industries. But even Gillette wasn't invincible. They were facing some challenges in the late 80s.
Competition was heating up, and those corporate raiders were sniffing around.
Always lurking in the shadows.
They were looking for any sign of weakness, and Gillette needed a way to shore up their defenses and reduce their debt.
Enter Warren Buffett stage, right?
Exactly. He saw an opportunity to invest in a brand with global recognition and a history of innovation.
It was a classic Buffett move by a great company when it's facing temporary headwinds.
You got it. And the story goes that Buffett and Coleman Mockler Gillette's CEO hit it off right away. They had a shared vision for the company's future.
So it was a meeting of the minds.
It was. And after some back and forth, they agreed on a deal that involved preferred stock with a conversion option.
Giving Buffett a solid stake in the company while providing Gillette with the capital they needed.
Precisely. And with Buffett on board, Gillette was able to fend off the raiders and focus on growing their business. And they came out swinging with new products, like the sensor razor.
Which was a huge hit.
Massive.
Yeah.
And they also made some smart acquisitions, like Duracell.
Adding another powerhouse brand to their portfolio.
Exactly. They were on a roll.
Ooh.
And then in 2005, Procter & Gamble bought the whole shebang.
Wow. So Gillette went from being a target to being acquired by one of the biggest consumer goods companies in the world.
It was quite the journey. And it ended up being a very profitable one for Berkshire Hathaway.
Another win for the Oracle. But even though it was a successful investment, Buffett wasn't afraid to call out some of Gillette's executive compensation practices.
He saw some things that didn't sit well with him.
Like what?
Well, he felt that some of their compensation plans were too generous and didn't really align with shareholder interests.
He's always been a big advocate for fairness and accountability.
Exactly. He believes that executive pay should be tied to performance and that managers shouldn't be rewarded for just showing up.
It's about earning your keep.
Right. So the Gillette deal is a great example of how Buffett's not just about making money. He's also about doing things the right way.
It's about ethics and integrity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that even the best companies can have blind spots.
So what are the big lessons we can learn from this Gillette saga?
I think it highlights the importance of investing in companies with strong brands, a history of innovation, and the ability to adapt to change.
It's about finding those companies that can stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And it's also crucial to find management teams that are focused on creating long-term value, not just short-term gains.
It's about finding partners, not just hired guns.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into these 10 deals, I'm struck by the consistency of Buffett's approach.
It's like a blueprint for successful investing.
It is. He had a set of core principles, and he stuck to them through thick and thin.
So give me the cheat sheet. What are the key takeaways from Buffett's playbook?
First and foremost, focus on intrinsic value. Look beyond the hype and the noise and find businesses with strong fundamentals.
Okay, focus on the fundamentals.
Right. And second, think long-term. Don't get caught up in the day-to-day fluctuations of the market. Let your investments compound over time.
Patience is a virtue.
It definitely is in investing. And third, find great managers, people you trust, and admire people who share your values.
It's about the people as much as the business.
Absolutely. And fourth, have discipline and patience. Wait for the right opportunities. Don't chase every hot stock or jump on every bandwagon.
Stay the course.
Exactly. And finally, look for businesses with durable competitive advantages, things that will protect their earnings for years to come.
Like those economic moats we talked about.
Precisely. So those are the big five. Focus on intrinsic value. Think long-term. Find great managers, have discipline and patience, and look for businesses with moats.
It sounds simple enough, but it's clearly not easy.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline. But if you can master those principles, you'll be well on your way to investment success.
And if you want to learn more about how Buffett put these principles into practice, I highly recommend checking out Glenn Arnold's book, The Deals of Warren Buffett Volume 2.
It's a fantastic read. It's like getting a masterclass in investing from one of the greatest of all time.
So there you have it, folks. Warren Buffett's journey from $100 million to $1 billion was a masterclass in value investing, guided by a set of core principles, a long-term perspective, and a remarkable ability to identify exceptional businesses and people.
And the best part is that anyone can apply these principles to their own investments.
You don't have to be a billionaire to learn from the best.
Exactly. So take the time to learn to think and to invest wisely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be doing a deep dive on your billion-dollar journey.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Warren Buffett's world. We hope you enjoyed the journey and learned a thing or two along the way.
Until next time, happy investing.